It's the Growler with PD&Jay. Here to analyze for you today. From Growler bed to Jay's got stats. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Growler podcast.
All right, welcome into the latest edition of PD&J on the Growler. Paul Dehner Jr., Jay Morrison, excited to be with you. What is going on?
I'm ready for this. I mean, this is it. It's weird the way that these teams have been playing these games so late in the year, and now it's coming early, and it's just I'm really intrigued by this game. I know a lot of fans think this is going to be Armageddon. I don't see it that way, and I'm excited to see what's going to play out Sunday.
You know what I'm excited about, Jay?
What's that?
Since we have gotten this podcast pairing back together way back in I don't know, March through free agency, we've yet to sit down and do a proper PD&J game week edition.
Yeah.
This is really the first. And these are always some of my favorite shows, always some of the best ones to do for us to really dig into everything we were seeing and hearing during the week, breaking down into the game, getting through Growler bets and predictions and run past your boots and Jay's got stats, all of it. I'm excited to dig into that because these are the shows I love the most and why I was so excited for us to start doing these back together. We've done a lot since we started it back up, but this is normal week one. Here we go. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I am too. I might have gone with too many stats this week. I was excited to bring them back out, but there's a lot of good ones when you're talking about these teams.
To do it for a Bengals-Chiefs week makes it all the better. Reminder, follow along on YouTube, the Growler podcast channel, or wherever you get all your podcast platforms. You can, if you're watching on YouTube and you want to know where you can listen, you can go to, there it is, up there in the corner, the QR code. All the links to all of our stuff are there, including Growler merch, Cincy shirts. We have a great partner in Cincy shirts now. They're sponsoring the walkout pod, but you can get 10% off any order you do at Cincy shirts just by using Growler pod. That's all you got to do. Use Growler pod and you can get 10% off everything you buy over there. And you can find some sweet Growler merch. So make sure you are following there. And a reminder, next live show that we are doing is going to be prior to the Monday night football game against Washington on the 23rd. That is going to be a 4:00 kick for us, me, Jay, Mark, you know the crew, and we are going to be throwing the party down there again. Last time, Jay, we had the Jamar Chase jersey and said, look, if Jamar signs before we finish this show, this is the Thursday opener, we'll give it away to whoever's here. And the roar was loud. Okay. So if he doesn't, though, it rolls over to the Monday Night Football show. And so guess what, Monday Night Football show people? Jamar Chase jersey will be raffled off as part of our grand prize. I got a sweet Joe Burrow body armor cooler that they sent me as like a little merch pack. It's actually pretty nice. Part of his promotional people, and give that away. We've got, of course, bonus bets, Nation gift card, $3 Cincy Light, $6 Queen City Nacho trays, the cornhole throw for giveaways. We've got it all going on. It's going to be so much fun down there. We hope you come and join us 4:00 at BetMGM Nation Kitchen and Bar at the Bank. Such an awesome venue, food, drink, party, bets. It's just a great place to go before any game or event down on the Banks. Jay, you're hooked. You're like, I'm going down.
Yeah.
You're doing second chance drawing. You're like, this second chance drawing sounds good. I'm in.
Yeah, tonight. So they have a deal where if you turn in a losing ticket, you can get in a drawing for $100 gift card to Nation, and they're going to draw
$100 in bonus bets
and $100 bonus bets. Yeah, and they're going to draw for that tonight at halftime of the Bills and Dolphins game.
Yeah. And they're going to draw 3 winners. You can also get a $50 in bonus bets and $50 in Nation gift card, or $25 in bonus bets and $25 in gift cards. But they're giving away. That's got to be tickets though that were bought and lost, and then you can go get a new one. So hey, you're in. Go say hi to Jay at the window. Apparently. All right, let's get into Bengals news. Not a ton necessarily from yesterday. I mean, a lot of the same stuff. I'm still monitoring T. Higgins' hamstring. He was working on the side field. So, doesn't look, that's not a good sign for him necessarily. You would have wanted to see him probably in some kind of a stretch or individuals if you thought he had a chance to go this weekend, dealing with a hamstring, everything going on there. That feels unlikely that he's going to go this weekend. No Logan Wilson. Amarius Mims was hitting the sled for the first time, kind of at what we talked about before, where he was out there going through individuals and stuff, but not a lot of big contact. Now you're seeing him hitting the sled, doing that full extension with that pectoral strain. So moving potentially in the right direction there. Does that mean he plays this weekend? I don't know that that's necessarily the case, but certainly continues to get close and close and closer as he moves in the right direction. Outside of that, from practice, we were monitoring. There was a sweatband on Joe Burrow's right hand. He was throwing deep. I felt like on purpose, just to prove it to us. What the little portion while the media was there, he was throwing the ball all around. And said to us afterwards he thought it was a really good practice for him. And so we're not out there for all of practice these days, but we'll have to take his word for it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, asked in the after practice in his news conference if he's limited on any sort of throws, and he was emphatic. Absolutely not, he said. The Mims thing is interesting. I can't see them playing him this week, going into an environment like that, a rookie making his first start. I do wonder if he'll be active. And, if something does happen with Trent Brown and you're kind of forced to throw him in there. But that Wednesday, the week 3 Washington game, Monday night, that's always felt like that would be a really good time to kind of get him in there. And who knows, if Trent Brown plays well, they might have a hard time pulling him out, but he didn't play that great against the Patriots. And so you want to see what's going to happen against Kansas City. But yeah, definitely an encouraging sign that Mims is progressing and at least hitting the sled and doing a little bit more than he's done in the last few weeks.
Yeah. The caution message that we heard from Zach Taylor this week regarding Mims suggests that when he's probably like it could go is when they'll wait one more week, just to be absolutely sure. And that, if you judge him by where he's been at, that feels like Washington. I mean, that feels like that would be the game where potentially you could see him out there starting at right tackle against the Commanders potentially. But anyway, let's continue to monitor that. We'll have more information on that, obviously, as the week goes on, injury reports come out and those types of things. Let's shift to Burrow. So Mo and I talked a lot about this on Balds on Tuesday, and so I like shortening that to Balds. That feels like a thing that we should do. We talked a lot about Burrow on Tuesday, so I don't want to get as much into the philosophical reaction to Sunday as we did, but there's new data points here, and I thought Burrow was really interesting yesterday. In some of the things he said, discussing not just his wrist, but his performance in the opener and some other aspects of just these early season struggles and the dynamics of what's kind of going on with him right now as everyone freaks out a bit, rightfully so, about what the hell they just saw on Sunday. And so what I want to do first here is bring in Joe Burrow. I cut up about 4 minutes of Burrow from his much longer press conference, most of it sort of wrist and processing related as you kind of get a handle on where he's at. Just to start here as our jumping off point, and we'll talk more about it afterwards. Here's Joe Burrow from his Wednesday press conference.
About the flex of the wrist that we saw on TV. Can you just explain kind of what's behind that, kind of what's behind that kind of energy?
Yeah, I'm doing that all the time. When you come back from injury, you're always trying to keep the joint loose. That's part of ligament injuries. If you don't move it, you're going to lose it. So I'm always moving around, keeping it loose, keeping my mobility the way that it's supposed to be. So, it's going to continue to happen. I do it at home. I do it here. I do it all the time.
It looked like there were times where you could have pushed the ball downfield, found Jamar downfield more often. Did you see some of those spots when you watched film where you thought you maybe had missed a couple of opportunities there?
There were a couple that we could have taken advantage of that we didn't. But they did a good job. They got out early, and then they kept everything in front of them, knew where their help was, and funneled everything that way. So, we can do a better job taking advantage of those opportunities.
How important is it to, regardless of what the defense is showing you, make a concerted effort to push the ball vertically as deep as you can?
Yeah, it depends on the looks that you're getting. If we're getting one-on-one, I need to take advantage of those opportunities. If we're not, I'm not going to force things and throw interceptions, and I'm going to take what the defense gives me. That's, in my opinion, part of why I've been so good. So we can obviously do a much better job of taking advantage of those one-on-one opportunities. And there were a couple on Sunday that we didn't. And so we need to do a better job of recognizing that, myself included. But I'm going to continue to play the game the way that I feel like I need to play to win the game.
But your wrist isn't preventing you from throwing any throws that you've thrown in the past.
No, absolutely not.
When you watch film, Joe, do you ever think to yourself, they sped up the game on me at certain parts, or maybe I could slow down and see the field more clearly? Do you ever think that?
Yeah, sometimes. There were definitely some plays on Sunday that my process was probably rushed a little bit. And that's part of what I'm trying to get better at this week. I thought I had some happy feet in the pocket on Sunday. So slowing everything down, letting my mind work, and let my fundamentals take care of the rest.
Being hit on the first play, on the first drop back of the game, do you have to fight against that clock speeding up when something like that happens?
It's tough to say. I wouldn't necessarily say that. Just getting back to playing football again.
Joe, how different is the way you process the field in week 1 as opposed to week 5 over the course of your career? Is that a big jump for you? Is that a big difference in getting that game rhythm? Does it change? Does it look different to you?
Yeah, I would say, the more football that you see, there's always trends in how defenses play year to year because you're changing as an offense. And, once you put stuff on tape, teams adapt to it and teams see things that work in previous weeks. And so there starts to become trends here and there in certain formations and certain looks about how teams play you. And so once you start seeing that, kind of start to know what to expect a little bit. And so the more football you see throughout the season, the better you're going to get. And so that's what we're focused on right now, is just getting better.
Do you feel like that's been the biggest reason you have kind of traditionally gotten so much better, especially with maybe some clunky weeks 1 or 2? You've consistently gotten better at that. Has it been kind of back to the processing and knowing a little bit better what to expect week to week and use that to your advantage?
I think I learn a lot from my mistakes. I learn a lot week to week, game to game. And usually I'm able to apply that pretty well. So I'm excited about where we're at, the practice we had today. Excited for another opportunity on Sunday to go out there and try to prove what we're all about.
There's Joe Burrow discussing kind of the state of things after a troubling week 1. What was your biggest takeaway of that, Jay, of things that Joe Burrow had to say?
Yeah, kind of what he said after your line of questioning about getting into the flow of things. I mean, so many times you think about shaking off the rust as a physical thing and getting back in the flow. And everybody knows how good he is at processing and just his mental game. He's almost like a robot out there. And there is something to that, not just going from week 1 to week 5 and kind of feeling your way into the season, but the fact that it has been so long since he played, except for one preseason series. You go all the way back to November. It's been a long time since he's been out there. And Dan Pitcher, the offense coordinator, talked about this too, about how much they were kind of changing the picture right before the snap and doing things to try to confuse him. And I just think that that's something that people kind of take it for granted because he is so good at that processing part. You've mentioned, you've called it a superpower, but that layoff, there is some mental rust there. And I think that was a big part of maybe why he didn't take some of those shots and push it down the field and just not quite trusting what he was seeing this early on.
Yeah, that strikes me when you look at the way that kind of he's historically struggled in weeks 1 and 2, and then we've seen this jump. And I talked about those with Dave on Tuesday too. Those numbers they're startling, and you always would go back to the camp and the injuries and whatever. Well, not only is he still mentally unsure of how he was going to play with this injury and how it was going to totally feel, I think he was really unsure what he was seeing, and that same thing that's been there in recent years of the processing not getting there. That's just different. Like most top tier quarterbacks, that's not how they operate. They're physically freaky and they do all this stuff, but like as a true processing rhythm and timing guy, like that does make, I think, for him the first couple of weeks a lot harder because he feels uncomfortable and confused and not sure of what he's seeing out there, and he clearly was that on Sunday. And then when you throw on top of it maybe some uncertainty about the protection and what his wrist maybe kind of what would or would not feel like in a real game and taking hits. And I think you end up with what that is. That's certainly maybe the optimistic view that Bengals fans want. And that's the view that Burrow has. I took something from the confidence that he spoke with and in him admitting, like kind of seeing where his error was. Happy feet. I was sped up, and that was, an important thing for him, I thought, to mention, and feeling like he was going too fast in his own head and now working on slowing himself down and things like that. Burrow banking what went wrong, figuring out how to prove it, solving the puzzle week to week has been what's made him such a good quarterback over the years. And I think that's what the Bengals are relying on when they assess what happened on Sunday in terms of what's going to happen in Kansas City and beyond.
Yeah, and I mean, I talked about it on the walkout Sunday, and he kind of downplayed it when I asked him about it yesterday. But I do think that was significant in speeding him up and getting hit on the wrist, especially, but getting hit on the first drop back of the game and fumbling. I don't know how that doesn't put some doubt in your mind and get that clock cranking. And there's just a lot. It's kind of like last year, the rain, the injury. There's always they sound like excuses, but you have to look. They're reasons. They're all. I mean, it's just so far away from what you're used to seeing from him, and there has to be a reason for it. And everything we're talking about here feels like the reasons that was another clunker on Sunday.
Yeah, I think there's nervousness and concern, and there should be right now, but I also think there's time. I think that you can't go off the short sample size, especially when you consider what 21, 22, 23 have all looked like this early for maybe different reasons, but like have all looked like this. And he is coming off an injury. It is still a part of him. Are we buying that? Are we buying that this is just a natural way that a human being acts, just moving their wrist all the time and like kind of that keep it? I couldn't help but thinking of the 40-year-old virgin. I don't know if you've seen 40-year-old virgin, Jay.
I have, yes.
The line that he goes when he's there and he goes, is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it? And then people look at him like crazy. He's like, oh, so I'm just kidding. Yeah. I feel like he basically said that about his wrist. If I'm not moving it, you don't use it, you lose it. I'm like, okay, let's not go that far. But is that normal? Are we okay? Are we okay with the constant wrist movement making you believe that this thing is going to be okay?
I mean, it wasn't just Sunday. We've seen it. All the way back to OTAs. He's been doing that a lot. And there was the assumption that it was bothering him, that it was sore. And so, maybe it's not. Maybe he is telling the truth. And he's just keeping it loose and flexing it. I don't know. I haven't paid attention enough when you see him in the locker room sitting there after a practice or after a game, just kind of staring at the wall. I haven't noticed him doing that or just walking through the locker room. Have to be something to keep an eye on now. But, it does. It sounds like something a doctor told him, that you have to keep it loose, use it or lose it. And it's not something new. We've seen that throughout camp, throughout mini camp, throughout OTAs.
And for a lot of people, though, it's the first time they've seen him.
Right.
And so seeing that move and that sort of like gripping and flexing all the time and things like that. And I did enjoy the idea of like the water bottle discussion of did I pick it up weird? Is that what happened? Some of the things I picked it up weird. Like it's just when you're constantly under. It's like when I went to his thing at Les Soup, the charity thing this summer, and it's like, how's he holding the ladle? Is he dipping with his right hand or his left hand? You're just constantly under the microscope as a guy like Burrow, and that always makes it a lot of fun for these conversations. I do want to. There's a lot of talk about air yards, okay, and I'm gonna quiz you, Jay. And I know you're probably looking at the rundown, and I shouldn't have put the answers on here, but I have. How about this? 30 games for Joe Burrow since the start of 2022. How many do you think he had with only one or fewer passes of 25 plus air yards? Because the other day he had one. He had the one to Chase. It was the only one. And I don't know. You probably would have counted. The DPI would count if it counted here, but it doesn't. So technically that kind of would have been 2. But he's played in 30 games, started 22. How many do you think he's had one or fewer passes of 25 plus air yards?
I kind of dug into this yesterday, and his average air yards per attempt in 21 was crazy, and it's gone down every year since. So
yeah,
I'm thinking that maybe not many. 5,
12 since 2022. This is he's had many games like this, and people don't think of it that way, right? You mean you the highlight plays stand out, right? It's the deep ball to Chase in Arizona, or the one across his body against Houston, and obviously people think about the 2021 season when they were just throwing go balls on command, and they did. That was but defenses reacted and changed the way that they play the Bengals, and that's been a big part of the conversation about how much he works underneath since then. And you heard him talk there, like, I'm not going to force things. I think maybe that's a message that he learned on the first throw of the 22 season when he got pick sixed by Minkah Fitzpatrick trying to force one a little further down the field. I'm going to quick check down when I feel like that's the play, and I'm going to use that to get completions and move the ball. That's who I'm going to be. I'm going to continue to be that. Games like what you saw yesterday are not all that out of the ordinary. Like I said, that's almost half of the games he's played where he's had one or less of just like yesterday kind of was. Now, it ends up being he had a total over that time span of 30 games of 95 passes of 25 plus air yards, about three a game. Is the average. His long was in Arizona, 51.
Mm-hmm.
But how many of his 7 longest air yard throws do you think were completed? Of his let's say his top 7, how many do you think were completed?
Maybe just that one.
That's it. Just one.
Yeah.
Just one. He's had a sweet spot in the 35 to 45 yard range in terms of air yards, where he's completed a ton of them. But once you start getting up over that, those truly launches, it was the chase ball is really the only. Now you go back to 21. There's more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
But I'm talking, this is really since the league approached them as a team differently from that point forward, getting completions, just ripping it all the way down the field, which I think everybody wanted to see that, hasn't really been common for Burrow. And while there have been certainly games, the most he's had in any game was 7. And there were very few of those. So I think what you saw on Sunday is a way that Burrow plays a lot, in a way he has played a lot, really since teams started defending him differently in 2022. That doesn't mean that it wasn't still cautious. It wasn't still an issue and all that stuff. But I did find some of the kind of background of how many times he actually lets it rip in games to be interesting for reference here.
Yeah, only 6 of those Sunday were beyond 10 yards. 6 of the 29. And that's why they want to get more explosive in the run game, to open that back up so he can take some more of those shots. A lot of it is not just, okay, this is who we are now. It's what teams are taking away. And you have to kind of live that way. And yes, he's good enough to process and move the team down the field and do a 10, 12 play drive. But you can't live like that all the time. You've got to be able to hit those big, huge explosive plays. And the way to hit the explosive plays in the pass game is to hit more explosive plays in the run game.
Yeah, I really felt like that middle area, like you're talking about there. Let's say under 25, but over 10. That's the area that we expect him to be peppering a lot more than we saw. Partially, maybe that's what the way New England played. Look for Kansas City to maybe be a little different as they play a little bit more man. All right, I want to bring in a little conversation. I talked about future fans the other day, and I just want to reiterate again. This is so great. These guys. They're Bengals fans. Mike Schroeder, he's from here, and I don't know if people know this about future fans, but in the 2021 season when the Bengals went on their run, it was Mike and his 5-year-old daughter, and he was like enjoying it like the greatest time of his life, and so sad that he wasn't able to really share football with her. And that's part of why he created Future Fans, which is this storybook activity box that helps parents teach kids how football works. It's really, really cool. I've done it with my kids who are 7 and 5, and you can do it as young as 4. And they learn the game and understand it so they can watch it with you. It's really cool. I had them on last year, Jay, for when we must talk for 20 minutes about it. It's because it's such a cool thing it's what every parent wants. You want your kid to enjoy the game with you, but it can be hard. It's really hard to teach. Like, I don't know if you ever taught your kids how football worked when they were little or tried to, but like, it doesn't always go well.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do. It's a confusing game. But you get this big activity box, and they have all these little boxes inside of them with like numbers on them. So you go day by day, and it builds this excitement for the next day to go do the thing. And it's sort of parallel activities to teach things like downs and how points work, whether it's bean bags with rope circles that you throw through, or how you go back and forth and can stop. And the idea of punting is kind of a part of it too. You do all of that to teach them, and they have fun with the little games and with the story. And then when you go to football, it all makes sense because you're just saying, oh, it's just like the beanbags were or whatever. And it totally works. There's like touchdown dances and celebrations that they have in there. And next thing I know, they're doing chicken wing, rocky bottom hops and all kinds of stuff that's in there, which is hysterical. It's a great product. It's fantastic. It teaches everything that you want so you can sit and enjoy watching the games because your kid wants to watch the games with you because they understand it and can really find the reasons that you like it. So if you don't know about Future Fans, or you haven't seen or heard of it, you have a kid and you were like, man, I wish they understood the game a little bit better, try it. You will love it. My kids did too. 4.9 on Amazon, 6 toy awards from parenting organizations. They're one of us. They're Growl Pals. And that's how we got matched up with them. So if you want your kid to understand football, Future Fans for you. It's $49.99. You can use the code Growler at futurefans.com and you'll get 10% off. Or go grab it in my hood at King Arthur's Court in Oakley, and you can unlock a lifetime of memories with a kid in your life. Do that starting now.
Yeah, I wish that was around when my kids were growing up. I that's one of my regrets is, my son would watch football with me and he would ask me all these questions trying to learn the game. And I was like, save it. Wait till the commercial, then ask me. And because you just don't want to go back and go over a play that just happened. And you're trying to watch the next play. And I think you grew up, I'm sure, watching sports with your dads, and it's some of your most favorite memories, and same with me. And so I hope that's the case with my son. I hope he's not scarred by me constantly shushing him, but this is a great thing. I mean, it's a really clever idea, and we've talked about this before, how much fun your girls had in doing it. So if you do have young kids out there that like, or you want them to watch games with you, this is a great way to go.
Absolutely. It's a fantastic product. And look, although I saw, Braden, he was darn near in tears in some of the games that I've seen the videos of with you guys and some of the games they went to. So
he was in tears after he went to Tennessee when they won that first road game in playoff history. And I have video. I showed it to Zach Taylor. I was like, this is the impact you've made on people. And my wife was panning around, everybody's cheering. And then she comes full circle to my son and he's just bawling his eyes out.
Look, the shushing worked. It was okay. Always be okay. You can always shush a friend while watching football. I think that's an absolute rule. All right, now is that time, one of our favorite times, as always, on the pod, where we bring in our good friends from the opposing city. And, people that listen to the Growler are like, yeah, it's Nate, because, this is what like, we do this all the time. We know Nate. He's like part of the family now at this point.
Yeah.
Like, let's bring in Nate Taylor, who covers the Chiefs for us, The Athletic. Nate, what's up, buddy? Welcome back. It's good to have you back.
Yeah, it's always great to be back. I don't appreciate this game being week 2. This thing needs to be in like November, December, like always. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. And who knows? I guess we're gonna see this game in like warm weather. That's
Yeah,
odd.
Let me
weird.
tell you, you may not appreciate it being now, but those of us that have had to try to travel to Kansas City in the middle of the winter over and over again,
Yeah.
absolutely appreciate this game being in the warmth and not having to worry about, is our plane just going to slide off the tarmac when we land? Like, what's going to happen? Every flight is canceled and we now have to drive? Like,
Yeah.
in an ice storm? How does any of this compute? Happy that it looks like we'll be able to travel just fine to Kansas City.
Yeah, and look, it's good to know that like the NFL thinks highly of this game. Finally, I guess thank you, Roger Goodell, for putting this sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm happy to be back, and interested to see how the Bengals respond from last week. I think that's one of the bigger storylines in the league, just because since the Chiefs played that Thursday night opener, I got to just be on my couch watching the game, and I'm sure like a lot of Bengals fans just kind of like perplexed, like befuddled, like what is going on? So
scared, frightened, considering jumping off the Roebling Bridge. Yeah, all of those emotions were a part of it. Let me ask you this from a Chiefs perspective, Nate. I thought maybe the questions were going to be about how the defense would recalibrate here with some new pieces. How did you feel like that's happened, and what are the biggest differences between the Chiefs defense right now and the one that left off, holding a Lombardi?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest difference, and I'm sure Bengal fans know this, is there's no L'Jarius Sneed anymore. So we don't even have the great sort of drama between L'Jarius Sneed and Jamar Chase, right? They obviously got into it in the last game, so I think the Chiefs were wondering, how is their secondary going to hold up without a guy who's a Pro Bowl sort of all pro caliber player? And I wrote about this, like how surprising Jalen Watson, a third-year player, has done so far, at least being the second quarter next to Trent McDuffie. They actually did pretty well against the Ravens, receivers. Zay Flowers, obviously, being their number one target. The big issue is that they had trouble covering tight ends. Like Isaiah Likely went off, and so I think that may be an issue moving forward. Is like, hey, maybe there's a bigger weakness in terms of covering tight ends than there actually is receivers. Even though L'Jarius Sneed is a Tennessee Titan now. But Chris Jones is still there. I mean, George Karlaftis is obviously getting better as a pass rusher as well alongside him. I do wonder, how will the Chiefs sort of use their safeties? Justin Reed, he entered the fray in the rivalry pretty early 2 years ago when he couldn't even get the guy's name right. It's like, oh, buddy. They had Brian Cook, who's coming back from an ankle injury. He looked fine in the first game, but he wasn't tested a ton. And the Chiefs have sort of this new rookie sensation that didn't play in week 1, but I wonder if he'll play against the Bengals. Jaden Hicks, a 4th-round pick. He had a very good preseason, but I wonder if he'll be in some dime personnel packages, considering how much the Bengals like to have 3-4 wide receivers on the field. But yeah, the defense is okay as of right now. But I wouldn't say they're as good as they were a year ago.
It's interesting because you talk about that, the replacing L'Jarius Sneed and this game being early as opposed to late. And I mean, everybody knows the Bengals have had these incredible struggles early the last few years, but Kansas City 6-4 in September the last 3 years. They were 10-0 in September in Patrick Mahomes' first 3 years.
Right.
I'm just curious, what have you seen from them early in seasons? Is it that where you're constantly, once you get to this point where you have a quarterback making that kind of money, there's going to be major changes? Is it kind of the Belichick effect where you just kind of use September to feel things out? Why do you think the Chiefs haven't been as strong in September as they've been December, January, February, obviously?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of everything that you just mentioned, Jay. I think they do use, especially for like Steve Spagnuolo, right? And I wonder this is somewhat similar for Lou Anarumo, but like Steve Spagnuolo will do things in September that for sure is not going to be there in November, December. Like he's just trying to play more guys. He's even acknowledged that, like, hey, like it's not a playoff game. I want to actually play the Black-Ups a couple snaps just because I want to get them, actual NFL snaps in the likelihood that they will have to play at some point due to injury. I think for guys like Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Chris Jones, they've been doing this long enough to know that, like, yeah, you could have a fall or two in September, but it's actually more important for them to be capable leaders so that the team actually grows over the course of the season, right? So I think when Mahomes was early in his career, he was just like, he was so hard to defend because he was so dynamic. I think now defenses have obviously gotten more used to trying to combat him. Obviously, Lou takes a lot of credit for that. And I also think, too, like, the Chiefs roster is very young. Even though they are back-to-back champions, even though they don't have, L'Jarius Sneed, or they don't have even someone like Tyreek Hill anymore, like, they've continued to get younger despite having, like, this core group. And so with young players, they're going to make more mistakes in September, or at least you hope they make more mistakes in September than they normally would in November, December, and obviously January. So I think the Chiefs have gotten to a place now where they don't feel like they have to come out gangbusters in the start of the season, but they also know too that, like, to sustain their success, they have to play younger guys because the sport is so difficult on your body. It is so violent. You can't pay everybody, so therefore you're going to need to rely on a lot of rookies, a lot of second year players. So for Bengals fans, two of the biggest players on the Chiefs roster this year is Xavier Worthy, the young, dynamic rookie receiver. And then, of course, from a pass rushing standpoint, for the first time in Mahomes' career, they are starting a true rookie left tackle in Kingsley Suamataia. So if the Chiefs stumble at some point, part of it is going to be because you are playing guys at very premium positions who are super duper young and they've never played in the NFL before. But the hope is that it turns out to serve them much later on down the road. So I think the Chiefs used to be a team that was built on veterans, on guys who knew what it took to be good from the start of the season. So now they are one of the youngest rosters in the league because Mahomes and Kelce and Chris Jones have been able to, give them a level of success that can carry them throughout the course of the regular season.
The starting the rookie left tackle thing, and we saw there was a couple times where he was able to be taken advantage of. How did you feel like he played? How much did they just leave him on the island out there? Because with Trey Hendrickson coming off the edge, really the Bengals pass rush was interesting on Sunday in that they were getting Trey Hendrickson home and nobody else was really doing much. And so if that's the case, how much will Kansas City focus on that? What did you see from the way they treated him and how much help they gave him and tried to deal with, just having a rookie out there for the first game?
Yeah, honestly, fellas, it was like they treated Kingsley like he was Orlando Brown Jr. It was kind of shocking. Yeah. It was just like, hey, man, like, the Ravens are legitimate, right? They have a good pass rush. They have simulated pressures, blitzes, and they mostly treated Kingsley like, hey, man, you're a starter. Like, that's only the greatest player in franchise history that you're protecting, one-on-one. So, from my look, he gave up a sack. He gave up a number of pressures. It's not great when Chris Collinsworth on NBC is like, here's what Kingsley did in the first half. And you're like, that's a rookie mistake. He was in the way, I guess. Cool. But the highlights are not you dominating. So I am worried about, hey, the Ravens don't have anybody like Trey Hendrickson. The Bengals do. And that'll be a test in and of itself. One way for the Chiefs to combat it is they do run a lot of 2 tight end sets with Noah Gray. Obviously, Travis Kelce can get involved. They do have another rookie in Jarrett Wiley, who's a tight end who's known for, hey, maybe you be a blocker first before we ever let you, try to catch the football running a route. So I wonder if they're going to give some chip help, but it was surprising. And I wonder if the Ravens even felt this way, fellas. Like, wow, they're just like letting the rookie left tackle kind of block one-on-one, and it's up to Mahomes to have the responsibility, kind of like Joe Burrow, to get the ball out quick, to get the ball out on time. Hey, if the rookie gives pressure to move up within the pocket or obviously extend the play. So it's sort of a lot of trust on Patrick's ability to recognize what's going on in the pocket. But Kingsley's athletic, he's obviously talented, but you don't see Trey Hendrickson in the preseason. So as good as he looked in the preseason, he naturally just had normal struggles in week 1. And I won't be surprised if those continue in week 2, which could give the Bengals a clear advantage, obviously, considering, the Chiefs do want to throw the ball deep, but you need time and you need protection in order to get that accomplished.
You may have just answered that this next question I have for you with that answer, but I am curious because everybody sees what the Chiefs have done, back-to-back Super Bowl titles. People kind of see them as bulletproof. Is this just the elite, untouchable? What in your mind? No team's ever won 3 in a row. So what in your mind is the possible fatal flaw this year? Like what is gonna keep this team from achieving history? And not just specifically in this game, but overall, what are the big concerns this year with a roster that's really good?
Yeah, I mean the roster is good, right? And at least for 1 week, you could see like, oh, that's why Andy Reid and Brett Veach, the general manager, made all these certain moves because they've sort of improved their receiver group. So congratulations, it couldn't have gotten worse. But also, like, it's hard to have a top 5 defense year over year, right? So I think if there is a way for teams to sort of catch up to the Chiefs or obviously overtake them, it's going to be you got to score points again, right? I think the Chiefs are going to naturally be in more shootouts than they were a year ago, where a lot of the games last year were like kind of close, nip and tuck. It almost felt like very 1990s football, where it's like, hey, the first team to 24 is going to win. Where I feel like now, like, will I be surprised if the Chiefs give up 30 points to an opponent? No, like your defense can't be. It would be asking them to do the impossible almost to be as good as they were last year, given the success and given how impactful Chris Jones was as a defensive player. So I think the defense can take, a little bit of a slide. Yes, the receivers look better now, but again, it's just one game. And look, I know Bengal fans clearly know this. Like, if Isaiah Likely's foot does not touch the white of the out of bounds in the back of the end zone, the Ravens are likely going for 2. And based on how the fourth quarter went, they're probably scoring and winning the game. So the margins are literally inches sometimes. And I just, I know the Bengals didn't play well in week 1. I don't know if it was a lack of, cohesiveness, if it was some, they seemed undisciplined at times. And hey, maybe you underestimated your opening opponent, because I think the Patriots aren't going to be good either. Like I'm not, we all understand like kind of where their roster is, but they're not going to underestimate the Chiefs. I expect them to play a lot better. So it should be a fun, competitive game. But I do think you're asking a lot of rookies, and it's not just like a rookie running back. It's like your deep threat. It's the guy protecting the blind side of the quarterback. And for as good as L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie were last year, I don't think Jalen Watson's going to play like a Pro Bowl level all year. And so a lot of the burden will come down to staying healthy, of course, in order to three-peat, and kind of doing what they did last year, which was rise to the occasion. I think that's the thing that is most admirable about what the Chiefs did a year ago, is that Patrick had probably the roughest season of his career, but then as soon as the calendar turned to January, he just stopped making mistakes, right? He just kind of rose to the occasion. Chris Jones was dominant, and after looking awful at times last season, Travis Kelce became a superhero again. And so can they do that again? Well, that's asking a lot when you're playing, 20 games every season moving forward. So I don't know. I won't be surprised if I feel like I say this every time I'm on. I won't be surprised if the Bengals win because the Chiefs almost lost last week. And, we just saw what happens when you don't play at your absolute best in Cincinnati at home. So for playoff implications, for the rivalry, I expect Jamar Chase to just be better, and I'm assuming Joe Burrow won't be sacked the way he was against the Patriots, which was really, again, like kind of befuddling, confusing, perplexing in a way that I just didn't anticipate.
Yeah. Great stuff, Nate. I won't make you give an exact prediction. Unless you like got one in the holster. But I won't make you fire it off on a Thursday. You can let it marinate a little bit. You basically put it out there. Although it was the ultimate cop out of like, I wouldn't be surprised, but
I'm not surprised.
How can I play both sides?
Yeah.
It's true.
The thing that worries me about the Bengals, beyond just like them giving up a lot of rushing yards, is the Bengals, and then this was a great thing that Lou kind of weaponized, was just like they always had a very good secondary in the Joe Burrow era, and I just wonder, like, is the secondary as good as it has been in the past? No Jesse Bates anymore. Mike Hilton's getting older. I understand. Von Bell is still there, and I have a lot of respect for him. But it's amazing how much these rosters change in like 2 years' time, where you're just like, that 22 AFC Championship game was awesome, but it's like, man, like there's no Tyler Boyd, like T. Higgins might not play in this game. So the rosters are changing, but again, I just think the Chiefs, if you're ever going to get them, it's better to get them now than trying to catch up to them, at least in the standings or in the playoff, whatever, the playoff implications. It's much better to get them now in week 2 than it is to try to do it in like week 14, week 15.
No question. Jay, you know what all of this incredible insight from Nate was, in my opinion?
I do.
What was
Let's hear it. It was Graders worthy.
That's right.
Yeah.
This is Graders worthy. There's no question. And not to mention the fact that you're just like back a part of the family again. Like it's like seeing the cousin that comes into town, a couple of times a year, and you catch up. How are things been? What's going on with you? How's the family? How's the dog? Yeah. Good to see you, Nate. And we're going to ship in some Graders your way. You used to be in Indianapolis, so you're familiar with the.
I'm familiar. It's been a while.
Are you a black raspberry chip guy? Or are you just going to go with the homer choice here? Yeah.
No, I do love it. And I don't think it's so funny. Like it's been a while since like my son's had it, so it'll be fun to like sort of share that with him, because it is so different than like, different in a good way. It's so different than like here. Like there's nothing quite like Raiders here.
No.
But yeah, living in Indianapolis, obviously being in Cincinnati a couple times, it's great. So yeah, happy to be Graders worthy. And
you are Graders worthy.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Coming your way. Nate, appreciate the time as always. Always great catching up with you, and looking forward to see you in the press box on top of the moon on Sunday. It's gonna be fantastic.
So true.
See you, buddy.
Thanks, Nate.
See you, mate.
All right. Much thanks to Nate Taylor for joining us. Awesome stuff as always. I couldn't help, but think as he was talking about their new receivers and Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice obviously still being there, and some of the guys they have. Lou Anarumo, yesterday we were talking to him in the media room. He goes, I remember the first time going against them and being like, my God, am I watching the 4x1 Olympic track team? Like what, when they had Hardman and Pringle and Tyreek Hill and all those guys, he's like, and I feel like we're doing that again now. Again, I feel like I'm back looking at these guys, just the fast guys. They've kind of got that crew back. And he pulled out an old play to show the team early this week of Mahomes rearing back and ripping it like 80 yards down the field right before halftime in that regular season game, of all that Von Bell ended up knocking out one-on-one with Tyreek Hill, but it was literally just throwing it as far as he possibly can. As a reminder to everyone, the play never ends. You need to run even though you think you're further beyond everywhere you need to possibly be. And I think that's the type of thing that he wants to remind everybody that is going to kind of be back for the Chiefs again this week, and this defense needs to be aware of it.
Yeah, and that play was every bit as big. I mean, it wasn't an AFC Championship game, but it was every bit as pivotal as the Eli Apple tackle right before halftime. Because remember, that was a game the Bengals had to come back and win, and that really kind of started that comeback. And Nate mentioned it where L'Jarius Sneed is gone. So the chirping back and forth between him and Jamar Chase is no longer. And then Cam Taylor-Britt kind of picks up the mantle yesterday and asked about Xavier Worthy, says he has speed, but that's about it. He can't do much else. I'm sure that's not going to be received well in Kansas City.
He can run fast straight.
Yes. But he's only like 100-some pounds. Just get your hands on him and you can stop him.
Can't run fast when you get your hands on him. Yeah, that was off we go again. Bengals-Chiefs doing what it does. There's always going to be a chance. Like, do you hate? I hate the Chiefs, but I hate almost everybody we play. But clearly not holding back. And you know what? I like that. I actually like that at this point, considering last year and considering what happened on Sunday. The idea of having some of that confidence to just come out and be ready to talk trash, I think might actually be a good thing. For once, the first time ever, that it might be a good thing to put up some swagger and some bulletin board material. One other thing, I thought was interesting that Lou was pointing out, he was asked about Trey Hendrickson. And, Trey had 6 pressures, depending on where you look in, and no sacks, but man, he was an inch away 1,000,000 times. And Lou was quick to point out, there was a few things that Trey probably could have been better, but man, he was moving them. He was getting the pressure. He was doing everything you want to see him do. Just there wasn't enough push up the middle a lot of times. There wasn't. He's like, we need to make sure we're doing everything else around him right. AKA other guys got to start winning. Like Sheldon Rankins, BJ Hill, Sam Hubbard, whoever is in there needs to start. They need that pocket push. They can't. You can't let them just escape. And up front, or whether it be up front, which we saw Brissett do a bunch, where he just would step up and skip through a lane and be able to get away from Trey. And that's putting some people on notice. Sam Hubbard just on Sunday in true pass sets, the 13 reps in true pass sets had a 0% win rate according to PFF. And he was mostly a non-factor. That 4.5% total on all, which is very low. Trey Hendrickson was 40%, which is freaky. But still, that's way low even by any of Sam's standards. And Lou said, look, Sam didn't have a training camp, pointing out nobody works as hard as him to get in shape, but it's hard to just come out and get your legs under you week 1 and play 40-some snaps. I think he'll get better as you go. He also had a far tougher matchup against Michael Onwenu than you saw Trey on the left side. Really curious to see, and I think it can play a huge difference in this game. How effective can Rankins, Hill, and Hubbard be at just getting back there a little bit more, or even not getting home, but just redirecting Mahomes towards Hendrickson a little bit more, because it was almost a non-factor against the Patriots, and they're gonna need that against Patrick if they're gonna have any shot.
Yeah, and do we see some more Joseph Osai for that very reason, where you would think he would be more dynamic and better to rush off that edge than Sam is, and they knew it was going to be a running game, and I think that's why Sam played as much as he did, because he is so good against the run. And with Hendrickson, doing that and pushing Jacoby Brissett up, he's not known as a running quarterback. That's been the knock on him forever, is he's not going to put the ball in danger. He's not going to throw interceptions, but he's going to take a lot of sacks because he just doesn't run. And he did. He beat the Bengals with his feet multiple times, and now you've got a guy who can do it. Everybody thinks about Mahomes scrambling around in the backfield and then uncorking the long one, like we talked about with the Von Bell thing. But he's so dangerous where he just takes off. And Lou talked about this. If he's moving backwards, that's when you worry about him uncorking a long one. When he hits that B gap, he's gone. If you see him head that way, he's going to tuck it and go. And so many times he's done that, where it looked like the Bengals were going to get off the field and he just takes off and runs. Not just the Bengals. He's done that to a lot of teams. So they do. You can't just have one pass rusher winning. Even if he's winning over and over again the way Hendrickson did, they've got to get some more push either from the middle or from that other edge.
All right, let's dig a little bit further in here. Jay's got stats time. You got some stats for me as we prep in for Bengals-Chiefs?
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things about Lou and this matchup with the Chiefs, and we saw it really stood out in that first AFC Championship game, when in the second half they just said screw it and just started dropping 8, and that plays into Patrick Mahomes' game, where he can run around back there more, and it's hard to plaster against receivers for that long. He did it 11 times in that game. He's done it. He's dropped 8 25 times in 5 games against the Chiefs. So that's 5 per game. He doesn't have a higher rate against any other team. I mean, most of these teams, he's doing it once or twice a game, and it's just something that they lean into quite a bit when they're playing the Chiefs. And he said they're going to do it. And he's not going to tell us when they're going to do it. And I asked him, is there a plan there where, okay, you see this formation, or you're this spot on the field, or it's this down and distance, or is it just a gut feel of, okay, it's time to pull it out? And he said it is a little bit of both. It does come down to a gut feel sometimes. And I think that's going to be really interesting to see how much they do it against Mahomes this time, because they did it the most in that 2021 season when it was the track team, when it was all those speed burners, and now they've gotten back to that. And I am really curious to see, is it going to be like that again? Are we going to see him approach 11 times, dropping 8 guys in coverage? It seems counterproductive, but they've done it before.
Yeah, it's funny. I kind of went through some of the, depending on the service, teams kind of, or they view it differently and what those numbers were, but similar. The True Media had it for 18 times they dropped 8 in that game, but they might have been being a little bit more lenient in terms of maybe a defensive lineman popping out or whatever. Regardless of what it was still a lot. But then you didn't see it as much, and then you'd have it one game it would be all on third down. And then the next game, it would be none on third down. And then it was like there was these little, he talks about the wrinkles, little wrinkles where situationally he would use it differently. Where and then one game he went heavy blitzed more than he ever has against them by 2 or 3 times. And so it seems like every time he has some kind of adjustment to what he did the last time to be slightly different. And I'm curious to see if that is the direction he goes again, is back to the drop 8 thing. And it, they know to expect that. Like there's just no secrets in this anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, there's these two sides. It really does become about, when does it feel like the right moment to pull thing. I don't think you're going to be in a situation where you can do what you did in that game ever again, where you just keep doing it because they don't seem to have an answer and are surprised by it and not putting the puzzle together. That's just not going to be the case anymore. It's more going to be about high leverage situations, and I think from Lou, red zone third downs, where we know that's where he's going to be pulling out his number one cards. So either blitzes he's cooked up this week that he hasn't shown, or drop 8s. Look for those in those very high leverage red zone or high red third downs. I mean, Lou focused hard on that red zones will define this game. The Chiefs will move the ball. They move it on everybody, and he's like, what I need to focus on is making sure that we get our fair share of stops in the red zone. When we've done well, that's been the key, and that's going to be the focus again this week, as they hope to be a little bit better than it was just last year. Butker over and over again, kept the game either with the Bengals in the lead or within reach. They end up losing by 8 with Jake Browning, but their ability to get stops and force field goals was all the difference. That was a much different KC offense, though. That was pre-Super Bowl run and pre all of these speedsters that have shown back up. So I always love these matchups. Lou versus Andy Reid is always fun. And so it's going to be fun again to see what the next evolution of that is. I have a story up on that too as well on The Athletic, if you want to go read more about some of the background of sort of Lou Anarumo viewing the next evolution of his battles with Patrick Mahomes. Let's see. We both were compiling a little bit of this because the Chiefs are coming off this mini bye, having played on the Thursday. And so through last year, Andy Reid with extra rest. This is just kind of broad stroked as extra rest. Is 28-4 in his career. So more rest. Now he'll come into this with more rest than the Bengals, obviously, with them having the mini bye and stuff, which is a daunting number. And everybody, you give Andy Reid too much time and you can be in trouble, the same way people talk about that with Bill Belichick. However, if you dig a little bit closer, Jay, as you're one to do, and get deep in the sheets, you find that it's not quite as daunting of a number.
Yeah. So when I looked it up, I looked at either Andy Reid after a true bye week or Andy Reid after a Thursday game, when you get the mini bye, the weekend like they're coming off of this time. And Andy Reid with the Chiefs the week after a Thursday game, 8-6, a very pedestrian 8-6. All other instances after bye, after Thursday game, 43-14, going all the way back to his time with the Eagles. So he is a master. I mean, he's a Hall of Fame, first ballot Hall of Fame when he's done coaching. But that, I thought that was interesting, that for whatever reason, after the Thursday games, and going back to what I said earlier too about September, just 6-4 in September games, and very close to being a toe away from being 5-5 after last week. It's a weird spot to struggle in.
Yeah, it really is. I have a run, pass, or boot, Jay.
Okay.
Here. Okay, so there's a few things at play, some that we've discussed and some that we haven't. So we know the running game thing from last week, right? Ramondre Stevenson, he goes, there's the sounds of Hamilton.
Yes.
I hear the sounds of Hamilton. Motorcycles go off in the distance. I love it. I love when the sound of Hamilton drops in.
That wasn't a motorcycle. There's a lot of cars in Hamilton that don't believe in mufflers. That's what that was.
Hamilton's finest non-muffler. You can actually you can take it to a body shop and get your muffler taken off in Hamilton. I believe they'll do it for you. Just take it right off. So last week, Isaiah Pacheco, he has 15 carries for 45 yards, 3 yards per carry. We know what Ramondre Stevenson did. We know the 170 on the ground for the Patriots. We know 14 missed tackles they tracked for the Bengals for a 6-year high, according to Lou, and all of that. So can the Bengals get back to wrapping up, to not being beat up on the ground? Well, the Chiefs are looking to get their own ground game going. So let's keep that in mind. We know about Burrow and a lot of wondering what he's going to look like and what that passing game is going to look like in week 2. Xavier Worthy. We have the, hey, don't talk shit axiom at play here, where the moment you talk crap about somebody, it seems like that player is destined to go off the next game. Cam Taylor-Britt with what he had to say. My run, pass, or boot for you, Jay, is will Pacheco go for 100 yards? Will Burrow throw for 300 yards? Xavier Worthy goes for 100 scrimmage yards. These three. Which of these three are most likely to occur? Run, pass, boot.
Ah, boy, that's a tough one. I think I have to run with Pacheco running for 100. Bengals talking about they know what they did wrong. I still, it's a quick pivot to go from a 6-year high with 14 missed tackles to all of a sudden be great this week. And even if they are, Pacheco makes good defenses look bad the way he runs so hard. He breaks so many tackles. I'll run with Pacheco. I'll pass on Burrow just because I do think he's going to be better. And the possibility exists that this game's a little out of hand and the Bengals are doing nothing but passing in the second half. And then I'll boot Worthy. As electric as he was, he still only had 3 touches against the Ravens. He happened to score on 2 of them. But he wasn't a huge factor other than the fact that, one was a 21-yard run for a touchdown. The reception was 35. So that was 56 yards right there on 2 receptions. He's got that kind of speed to do that. But I just don't think the volume is going to be there. So I'll boot him.
I like all of your fact patterns here. I like your logic. I think these are all, I'm on board with it. I'm going to flip. I'm going to run with Burrow because one, you're right. I think that there's a chance that they're behind and they're throwing more, and that becomes a part of this game. And I just generally think he'll be a lot better. And I do think they'll be able to take advantage a little bit of the Chiefs secondary without L'Jarius Sneed as they try to figure some things out. I liked the way Nate was talking about the tight end stuff. I think we saw the Bengals utilize the tight ends in some deep rotations in the opener. I think they lean even further into that and use that as a way, maybe a little bit more 12 personnel in this game is something you could see. We've talked about the Drew Sample, Eric All stuff that really got their running game going in the third quarter, and how that could be something they could utilize and have 12 personnel out there with those guys, maybe throw to them a little bit more and start as a way to play off your own tell. If you're out there with those two guys, maybe Eric All involvement in the passing game starts to establish him as a threat. All of that, I think Burrow can throw for 300, and I just think Pacheco going for 100 yards on the ground, that's a lot of yards on the ground. Now, it can happen. I just think as much as Mahomes likes to throw it, other guys could get involved in the running game. I'm going to bet the Bengals get a little bit better in that area, and he doesn't go for 100. 100's a lot for Pacheco when you're talking about as many times as they throw it. And Worthy, I'll boot him too. I think the volume. I think that's about volume, but you don't need a lot of volume if two plays end up being big explosives as fast as he can go. So that'll be curious because that jet sweep's coming, okay? And we saw misdirection and missed tackles and all of that stuff give the Bengals fits and has given the Bengals fits. So will they be there? Will they be able to make the play? Because if you miss one on that guy, it's not going for 14, okay? It's going for as many yards exist between there and the goal line. So keep that in mind. All right, let's get to Growler bet. All right, Growler bet for this week. Last week, we had the Growler bet of rushing yards allowed by the Bengals. Oh, it was so cute to go back through all the answers, Jay, and see how optimistic everybody was about the Bengals rush defense. 62, 51, 74, hooday. So excited for the season. And then you come back, and what do we get? Oh, no one's even near 170. The highest number, shout out to pessimist Dan Petrie, he had 152, but it's not even so close.
No.
It wasn't even near the 170. Nobody was willing to go to that level of pessimism and dismay and self-loathing that Bengals fans have been feeling this week. So better luck next time. And again, with these Growler bets, if you win, tab on us during one of our live shows down at BetMGM, Nation Kitchen, and Bar. So Growler bet this week, Jay. Here's what I've got. Did all those conversations earlier about the longest air yards. So now if you listen to this show, and you didn't skip forward to the end because you're a big Growler bet prediction guy, maybe you skipped to Nate because you're a big Nate Taylor guy. I get it. I would be too. But I gave all those stats earlier about the background on air yards from Joe Burrow in terms of volume, in terms of the longest he's done. This weekend, let's do Joe Burrow longest air yards completion. So longest single completion with the longest air yards is going to be what we're gonna go with on this one. Got to hit it on the nose because let's be honest, this is not a big wide. This is kind of a gift. We got the Monday Night Football show coming up here soon, so we can get into it. Somebody get a winner down there. I'm open to it. Let's do it. Let's get a tab running at that thing. So, what do you think will be Joe Burrow's longest air yard completion on Sunday?
Yeah, completion's the key word here. I think they're going to take some more shots, but I don't think it's still going to be a ton. You still have to be cognizant of Chris Jones, not just cognizant of him, but you may not have time to sit back there and just let one rip over and over again. So I'm just going to go a perfectly even 20-yard air yard longest completion.
All right, conservative. I think that's a nice solid number. We talked about how few times he's had any throws over 25 in these games, and so I can see that. I think they hit one. Now, I'm not saying we're going to see Arizona, but I think when you heard Burrow talking about, I got to find those one-on-ones, I got to take those shots when we got them, there's going to be some spots where I'm not going to say he's going to force it, but he's going to be looking for it, and he's going to be sitting back there thinking, I'm ripping it this week. I feel like he's going to have that attitude towards it, especially if it's something that he's working on. We know when he's working on something, it typically comes out and you see it executed. I think he hits one. I'll say 33 as the long air yard for this week in this game, and that'll be my guess. All right, so if you want to win a tab at our live show at BetMGM and Nation Kitchen and Bar, it can be yours. All you got to do, send in your submission to the Growler Podcast at gmail.com, or you can hit us up on Twitter and use hashtag Bengals Growler bet. When you send us those emails, make sure Growler is somewhere in the subject header. Makes it a lot easier for us to track it so we don't miss you. We don't want to miss you. So get those submissions in before kickoff, 4:25 kick on Sunday. So looking forward to that. And so get it in before kickoff, and you can win a tab at our next live show. All right. Predictions, Jay. What do you got?
Well, first, I do like your Growler bet pick because we have focused so much on this show. I mean, all week, everything's been Burrow, 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 Burrow. I think people forget that Jamar Chase was limited with very few practice last week. He was a little sick. I think you're going to see a different Jamar Chase this week, especially we know how much he gets up for playing the Chiefs. And I do think that's going to open up the offense more. Just him feeling healthier, not sitting out. He played 40 out of 48 plays, but he typically plays a lot more than that. So I do. I think that the chances are that they're going to be more explosive. I think it's a close game. And you see this year in and year out. The team that just everybody expects to win and they lose in week 1, and it's the overreaction, and they come back really strong in week 2. Now, they're not always playing the 2-time defending Super Bowl champion, but you also see those teams, the really good teams that have a huge win in week 1, and there's just the regression. And I think this is going to be a really tight game. I struggle. I can't predict the Bengals given what they've done in weeks 1 and 2 the past few years, given that it's the Chiefs, given that it's on the road, all of that. But I think people are crazy that think that they're just going to go into Kansas City and get their doors blown off. I think this is going to be a tight game. I'm going to say 23-21 Chiefs, Harrison Butker at the gun.
Butker at the gun, 23-21. Okay. All right. Mark that down. I like that. So we're in a similar place. And, I don't like being immediate. We're back together in a prediction game here. We're doing PD&Jay, like back in a normal week again. And I don't like having my thoughts being this close to yours on this game. I like feeling a little bit different, like I have a different view of it, but I view it the same way. And I think I'm viewing it through a historical lens here, Jay. I mean, well, one, every game between Burrow and Mahomes must be decided by 3 points. That is in perpetuity to the end of time. That's the way it has to be. And I want that to be the case. How great would it be if it ends up being like Manning Brady and they play like 42 times and every game's decided by 3 points? It'd be amazing. I'm here for that. I want that. So I'm going 3-point differential. I'm with you. You look historically, though, in these week 2 games after these week 1, clunkers, whatever, the last 2 years specifically, I feel like you've seen a little bit more of the clunkiness, and then it starts to really work itself out as the game goes on. Against the Ravens, right? They had some of that. There were still a couple too many mistakes there against the Ravens last year, but they did score 24 points with the punt return. The year before that, you saw Dallas, right? They fell behind, but all of a sudden as the second half went by, man, Burrow was just zipping the ball all over the field and moving the ball, and they almost came back and won that game, but it wasn't quite enough. This feels like that. Tough ask at the Chiefs, at Arrowhead, coming off what you did last week. I think they're still clunky a little bit on offense, but I think they start to figure it out. And I do think as the game goes on, it gets close. I do think it is dramatic. I do think it ends up being Mahomes making a play at the end and getting the field goal too. I'm with you. It feels like they do enough to make you feel good about the direction that they're going this season. They get back on track and look a little bit more like their normal self, but it's a lot to ask to go to Arrowhead and do that. So I have 23-20, reprising some scores from the past.
You're going to open some wounds.
I know. I can't help it. There's wounds everywhere in this. Okay. We're all staring at wounds everywhere all over the place. So 23-20 is my prediction on this one, with the Bengals losing, falling to 0-2. Another thing that we're very comfortable and understand what to talk about, and we can do more historical perspective on 0-2s. The good news on 0-2s, if you're a Bengals fan, if it happens, is that you're really good in week 3. they tend to play really well in week 3 in those situations, so that should make you feel good about maybe your Monday Night Football ticket and how you'll feel after that day of coming down to our show and then going to Monday Night Football, if it ends up that way. Now, Jay, you had the obligatory 0-2 stats loaded. Yes. We won't make you fire those off. we'll save those only if necessary
go into.
for the
Okay.
walkout presented by Cincy Shirts on Sunday night. You'll have that. Of course, the walkout, Jay and I both from Kansas City. We'll be here for you to wrap it all up. All right, Jay, we have to conclude with some quick Arby's. Do you have an Arby's here for me?
Yeah, I just I went up. I was talking to Eric All yesterday. I just want to see how things went for him. First NFL game, and you always get the cliche. Oh yeah, the speed was more than I expected. He didn't say that. He said it was exactly what I expected. I felt really comfortable. I felt really excited. Felt good about the way I played, and I told him. I said, because I had looked this up earlier in the week. I said, that was the third most 12 personnel they've used since Zach Taylor has been here. And his eyes kind of lit up, and he's like, really? And I was like, I think we're going to see more of it, because he's just that perfect guy that is more of an all-around weapon. And he was talking about that play where he comes in motion and then cracks down. He's like, that's all I did in college. He said, that's one of the reasons I felt so comfortable, is it was just like I did in college. And he's like, I very rarely lined up in line and blocked. If he was in line, he would run up the seam and catch passes. But when they had him blocking, he would come in from the outside and do that crackdown block. And so it was really interesting to hear that, where a lot of times a rookie will be like, oh yeah, it was a little fast. It's going to take some time to catch up. And he didn't feel that at all. He felt so comfortable. And I really do think we're going to see a lot more of Eric All as the season goes on.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm very curious to see how much they end up shifting to 12 personnel this year as a way to be, specifically with T. Higgins out, as a way to combat that. And, sneak a little bit, there wasn't as much 12 personnel with Gesicki, which surprised me. I thought maybe you'd see a little bit more of Gesicki 12, where you're still kind of in 11. Didn't see that as much. Most of the 12 they went to was Sample and All together. A lot of it was. And so curious to see how that evolves as the year goes on. This is a good one. Maybe this will be better for Who Dey Light tomorrow with Mark. But me and him will kick around some ideas off of this. But I got to shout out, Mo and I were talking about IKEA the other day, because his show was out in Westchester at the B-Dubs in Westchester, as they go on their B-Dubs tour right now on Tuesdays. And so, of course, started telling IKEA stories and mentioned, his Ektorp that he put together. And I mentioned, I need a new bookshelf. And I love our listeners. Our listeners are the best. Loyal listener Jackson sends me a message, and he's like, hey, love the show. Long time. We want to just reach out to you. Heard you talking about IKEA. Want to let you know. They accidentally shipped me 2 bookshelves about a year and a half ago. I have been doing everything I can to get rid of this thing. You want it? I love it. Just like, maybe Paul wants this bookshelf. He'll probably take it. And I'm thinking, like, this is so thoughtful. I am so appreciative. What a fantastic offer. Our listeners are the best.
Yeah.
And Jackson, you're the best. Thank you so much. I absolutely do not want that bookshelf. Please. I do not need another Allen wrench or IKEA project in my life in any way, shape, or form. Now, maybe we can raffle it off. If you want to bring down that bookshelf to our next live show or something like that, maybe we'll raffle it part of the grand prize. An IKEA bookshelf could also end up being part with the Chase jersey and everything else down at Nation BetMGM. Maybe that's what we end up doing with it. Shout out to Jackson for a very thoughtful response. Appreciate it. Appreciate the offer. Just don't think I'm going to be a guy putting together any more IKEA furniture in the rest of my life. I just don't think I can go there.
What if Jackson comes to your house and builds it for you at your house?
Well, all right. Maybe we're talking. Maybe that's a little different. I would have no expectation that would happen. And I'm not asking anybody to come to my house and build anything for me. I don't wish that on anybody either. But all I know is me and IKEA projects, we end up in a bad place. It ends up putting me in a bad place. My kids want to know, why is daddy so upset? Why is the door locked? Why am I here? Why does it sound like he's in a fight in there? I don't need any of that, but I appreciate the offer. Yeah. Jackson, thank you so much. You guys are the best, and looking forward to hearing all your Growler bet submissions. And it's going to be a great time. Who Dey Light tomorrow? Me, Mark, going through some of the the lighter side of this Bengals week. And for those of you that desperately need that at this point, I imagine. So look forward to that. That'll be up in the morning as well. So thanks to everybody for listening, and we will talk to you next time. Have a good one, everybody.